Tonight I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. I'm going to discuss candidates that are running for office in the upcoming primaries, which is crazy to think that we're already marching towards the primaries. I mean, we just got President Trump in there, 3 months ago when he was inaugurated. But we're already looking for our future representation. And when we're looking at candidates, what are we looking for? We want economic agenda, crime, border, strong military, small government. These are the things that are important to us. They're important to me when I could still vote. I can't technically. But people vote on tabletop matters. It doesn't matter what's going on in your personal life. They want to know what you're going to do to make their lives better. January 6th is not going to do that. It was a riot 4.5 years ago. Lasted a few hours. And it's just not a tabletop issue anymore. Hell, it was almost half a decade ago. How is that important to a single person? I don't think it's important to anyone in this country. What is important to people is how you're going to make their lives better. You can see this with Harry Dunn. Harry Dunn ran for office in Maryland as a Democrat in a blue district, and he lost. I'm going to play a little bit of Harry Dunn from Steve Baker, and I'm going to discuss it while this plays in the background. Harry Dunn ran for office thinking that his name recognition, his photo shoots, and his meetings and appearances with Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, he thought that was going to catapult him to the forefront. But the difference is this was his platform. Boo-hoo, woe is me. I was the poor police officer. And if he suffered in any way, which I hadn't seen any evidence that he had, not based on CCTV camera footage, but if he did, if he genuinely suffers PTSD, I am sorry for him. However, that is not a tabletop issue. That's not going to solve the American taxpayers' problems. So that name recognition alone is not sufficient. I think it failed him. I think this reporting, this is Steve Baker's work over at The Blaze. If you don't know it, go look A Day in the Life of Harry Dunn. Part 1 through 3 is up. But as you can see, he committed perjury. He falsified testimony in his 302s. His testimony in front of the January 6th Select Committee did not match his testimony in his FBI 302s or in the Oath Keeper 1 trial where he testified against us, myself included. And if you can, go watch these videos right here, A Day in the Life of Harry Dunn. They're excellent. I recommend them very highly. Steve Baker did an excellent job there. But I'm not here to talk about Harry Dunn. He lost. And I think the reason he lost is because he had no substantial platform. All he had was his name recognition, and all of it was based on this shaky evidence that didn't match his testimony. I think that damages credibility. But the point I'm bringing up, Harry Dunn, is this. January 6th alone is not enough to get you into office. It's just not important. So the reason that's important is because today we have 3 more candidates who are also running on January 6th. And we're going to go through each of them. One of them is a Democrat, and 2 of them are running as Republican. The first one we're going to talk about, I've talked about him the past few days. I'm not trying to hammer down on him. I'm just bringing it up because he is running for office, and that is Jacob Lang. Edward Jacob Lang. Eddie. He is running in Florida against an incumbent for the Senate. Now, the Senate is the big time. That is one of the most highly sought after political positions in our government. Second only to maybe Speaker, Vice President, and the presidency. Senate is the big times. So if Jake thinks he's going to run for Senate, you have to have a platform more than just January 6th. I want you to keep that in your mind as I show you his campaign video. What is his platform? What is it that he wants to accomplish? So we're going to just listen to Jake, and we're going to let him tell you exactly what it is he wants to accomplish.
1776 is back, America. Hello, my name
So here, our first agenda is 1776 is back. I guess that means revolution.
is Jake Lang. I'm a January 6th political prisoner that was recently pardoned by President Trump. We want
We are grateful to you, Mr. President. Thank you for what you did.
to thank the president sincerely for freeing us from Biden's disgusting gulags. January 6th was a day when free men stood up against tyranny, and our
So as you can see here, he's already talking about January 6th. He's showing a peaceful picture of him sitting here on this wall, just chilling out. What a guy, right? Genuine fella. Let's look at this real quick. This is the real Jake Lang right here. As you can see, everybody in the background is just hanging out, doing nothing, as Jake Lang punches and attacks police officers. He'll tell you, oh, I was trying to rescue Roseanne Boyland. But I see no evidence of that in that video. So right here, as you can see, this is the image he wants you to see. He doesn't want you to see what he did. They want you to think he was just this peaceful guy in a blue shirt hanging out on a wall. When in reality, he showed up dressed in all black with a gas mask and a ball bat, and he beat on the cops. But let's continue with Jake.
our founding fathers would have been shoulder to shoulder with us.
I don't think the founding fathers would have been shoulder to shoulder with him in the Lower West Terrace tunnel.
Patriots sacrificed 4 years of our lives for this country, and I will not let that sacrifice be in vain. The weaponized DOJ, the FBI Gestapo, and the deep state regime conspired to silence us. They tried to destroy President Trump and persecute all of his supporters.
Jake is not wrong about that. Now, if his agenda is to seek DOJ and FBI reforms, I do support that.
I will never allow that to happen again. It was God who got me through the gulags, and it's God who's going to make America great again. January 6th was a cry for change, and I am that change.
Again, we have returned to what? January 6th. So the closest thing to an agenda we have so far is DOJ reform. Like the sound of that, but I don't see how effective he's going to be in enacting that.
The tree of liberty is thirsty, America.
The tree of liberty is thirsty, America. How is he going to water the tree of liberty with the blood of patriots and tyrants from the halls of the Senate?
We may have won the 2024 election, but the revolution has just begun.
The revolution has just begun. And then he shows a picture of the Capitol building. Is he calling for revolution? I don't think so. Let me be clear. I do not think he's calling for an actual revolution. I think this is just rhetorical commentary that most political hopefuls regurgitate, right? But I still hear no platform. Let's continue.
We're going back to the Capitol, and this time as your next elected officials and lawmakers. Florida, vote for me for United States Senate. My name is Jake Lang, and I approve this message.
His name was Edward Jacob Lang. Just to clarify, for those of you who are looking on a ballot. Now, what was his economic agenda? Does he have any plans for the border? How is he going to strengthen law enforcement? He had brought back no agenda in these videos. Every single one of his videos was January 6th centric. Unlike Harry Dunn, he's running for Republican, I assume. It doesn't actually say. It's just approved by Jake Lang, paid for by Jake Lang. So I don't see any endorsement by the RNC. I don't know that that's necessary, but if he wants to run as a Republican, he better bring some agenda. And this is not it. So that's Jacob Lang's agenda, which is just January 6th, January 6th. I think it's doomed to fail just as badly as Harry Dunn's did. A lot more people, especially Democrats, knew who Harry Dunn was. Most Republicans have no idea who Jacob Lang is. And I promise you, he's not going to tell you who he is or what he did. There's not going to be any reference to the Metcalf stuff he's just recently done, all the race baiting and all the horrible accusations he's made, berating the father, the grieving father whose son has just been murdered, slandering Cash Kelly as a violent black American. None of that's going to come up in any of his campaigns. But as these campaign ads run, oh, you best believe the opposition is going to do their research. All that's going to come out. Jacob Lang doesn't have a snowflake's chance in hell at winning the Senate. That's an impossible race. All right, we're going to move past Jake. This isn't about him. I'm not trying to hammer down on him. I've done it for now 3 days in a row. I don't want to do it anymore. In fact, I may never talk about Jake again unless it's relevant to any particular discussion, because I need to move on from that guy. The next candidate that I want to discuss, his name is John Sullivan. He's running out of New York in a Democrat district. He has a better chance at winning. But we're going to look at his campaign video. We're going to do the same thing, and we're going to critique it. So let's listen to the words of John Sullivan.
We're up against some serious threats right now.
Serious threats right now. Stock market plunges after Trump tariff announcement. So already he's talking about an economic agenda. So even though he hasn't brought any kind of substance, they don't do that anyway. They don't bring any substance to their videos. It's all fear-mongering and baiting. But he's starting off correct by bringing tabletop issues to the front. Let's continue.
From skyrocketing costs to Trump and billionaires corrupting our government. And I can't just sit on...
Billionaires corrupting our government. But, as you saw there, he had footage of January 6th. How does January 6th tie intrinsically to billionaires corrupting our government? I agree, billionaires corrupting our government has been a problem. Maybe not billionaires, but certainly millionaires. The Pelosi's and the Mitch McConnells and all these uber rich people. They've caused incredible damage to our country. But let's not forget where they made their money. They made it in the halls of Congress. These people have been in public service their entire lives. That was their career, and they made those hundreds of millions in Congress. But I want to continue. Let's listen to him again.
On the sidelines and watch. Because for 17 years, I was an FBI intelligence analyst.
So here you have him bringing forth bona fides, right? He's coming forth and saying, hey, I was in the FBI for 17 years. That resonates with a lot of people. It does not resonate with me. It's an instant reason for me to vote against him. But he's trying to establish himself as somebody who knows the government from the inside. Let's continue.
Working in secret to keep us safe from global threats and the insurrectionists who...
Working globally to protect us from threats. Russia, vague. Okay. Terrorists, also vague. What terrorists? Cartels, okay, that's great. I'm into that. And then January 6th insurrectionists. One of these things is not like the other. January 6th was not a global threat. And that's how he's framed this, right? But that's the one he wants to stick with you, because he's already shown footage of January 6th, and he's trying to establish himself as, hey, I've been in the FBI, I've been working on all these things, and then I worked on January 6th. So that's his hook. Let's continue.
Stormed our capital. But now that the threat is coming from inside the White House, I had to leave the FBI and step...
So here he's trying to paint himself as a victim. Oh, now the threat is coming from within the White House. He's talking obviously about President Trump. He considers President Trump himself a threat. He's the duly elected president of the United States of America. This is the fear-mongering, right? Let's continue.
Forward, so I can finally tell you who I am. Hi, I'm John... No, I can say that now. I'm John Sullivan.
This is not a bad concept that he's got going here. He's trying to make himself relatable as a gay family man, right? I'm assuming this is his husband and his, I'm assuming, adopted son. Going on a limb here. So he's establishing himself with humor, which is not a bad idea if you're trying to lure voters. You're trying to make yourself relatable. It doesn't bother me in the least that he's got a husband. That's It's 2025. I mean, get over yourselves. But this is definitely, what do you call it? Affirmative action type deal. He's trying to paint himself as a type of minority, which homosexuals are. But that's just more of the checkbox stuff that the Biden regime did for all those years. But let's continue.
I'm a dad, a husband, a public servant, and a cancer survivor, and I'm running for Congress.
And a cancer survivor. So he's painting himself as a victim and relatable and funny. I think this guy's probably deep state as all can be. Let's continue.
For years, I fought for you in secret, and now I want to keep fighting for you in Congress. I'm John Sullivan.
Classified.
It's not classified. John Sullivan for Congress. Join me.
I think this campaign ad was incredibly smart because he is trying to portray himself as relatable, funny, a minority, a victim, and a hero. There wasn't a whole lot of substance here either. But I think this guy is probably has a better shot. I don't know who his incumbent is. I don't know who he's running against. But I think he has a better chance at winning. Certainly a much better chance at winning than Jacob Lang. This guy is somebody to watch. The next candidate I want to talk about is somebody who I also think has a pretty good shot at winning. At least I hope so. I know this person personally. I am very proud that he is doing this. I really, really hope that this is successful for him. Whoops. So this person I have known since my days in the DC Gulag. He's another person who is running for office based on January 6th, and that's Ryan Nichols. Ryan Nichols is an amazing human being. I think he's got a tough race ahead of him, but I wish him well. He's a veteran. He's a father. He's a family man. He's a small business owner. He served his country. I think Ryan is worth giving a shot. And if you live in his district in Texas 01, and you see his name on your primaries, I'm going to beg you to please vote for him. I haven't spoken to Ryan. This isn't some campaign ad for him. I just know him personally, and I think he would do an excellent job. But let's let him talk to you. This campaign ad is a little longer, so I'm just going to let it run, and I might interject every now and then. But let's watch Ryan's jump back into this candidacy.
East Texas, what's going on? Ryan Nichols here, and look, 2 weeks ago I announced that I was running for Congress, and I am. A couple of days after I announced, I saw a lot of support for Congressman Moran online. I saw a lot of support for him, and I thought maybe I'm running against the wrong guy. Maybe.
So right here, Ryan had an impulse to run for Congress. Then he saw support for his opposition. And he thought, you know what? Maybe this guy's on it. So Ryan dropped out of the race, which is very, very humble. And honestly, I respect that a great deal. Because he thought, well, why would I run against somebody who's already excellent? I'm going to let this guy take the reins. But Ryan continues.
The right guy is in office right now. Maybe I need to take a step back and worry and focus on myself and let Congressman Moran do what Congressman Moran is going to do. So I did that. Last night in Tyler, within 2 weeks of me announcing, even though I had dropped out of the race, he came to Tyler. And I went to Tyler to listen to him. And I had the full intentions of sitting there with my father and just listening to him talk and hearing what he had to say. And after an hour of listening to him give me death by PowerPoint and not listening to the rest of the crowd who was telling him, Congressman Moran, we can read. We want to ask you questions. We don't care about the PowerPoint. We want to hear what you have to say about the issues that we're concerned about.
So right here, this is what I was just talking about. Tabletop issues. People came. They have this candidate. They want to hear what he has to say. and he didn't have anything to bring forward. When the people asked for his input, he just shoved a PowerPoint down their throat. This is emblematic of all the rhinos. They just want to hear themselves talk. They want to monologue and drone on. And I think America is tired of that. We've been through so much after COVID, after the BLM riots, after January 6th, after all the nonsense of the Biden regime, giving away our gas to China and drag queen story hour and spy balloons and you name it, all the craziness that came out of the Biden regime. People were tired of that. They're getting tired of that. They want to hear real substance. Let's continue.
And he didn't care about that. He wanted to continue his PowerPoint presentation, and he wanted to continue doing what he wanted to do. So much so that he started disrespecting members of the audience, his constituents, whether they were liberal, whether they were conservative, whether they were middle of the road, it doesn't matter. He started giving disrespectful comments to people, inflammatory comments to the crowd.
That right there shows that the person who is currently representing Texas 01 does not have their best interest in mind. He doesn't want to listen to the constituents. And like Ryan said, he didn't care if they were liberal, conservative, middle of the road. It didn't matter to them. Moreno berated them, treated them like they were beneath him, even though they were his potential voters. Let's continue.
And then there came a question from a mother who said she had her son that was in prison here in Texas. And she said that it was hot and he had no AC, just like the prisons are here in Texas. And I experienced that down in Beaumont.
So here, Ryan is bringing forth an important thing. I think what Ryan is trying to say here is that constituents were very concerned. Now, remember, this is Texas. It's not exactly like Ohio, where I'm from. It's hot down there. And so what Ryan is actually discussing here is people brought the issue of prison reform and jail reform to their elected representation, and the guy didn't want to hear it.
With no AC during a hot summer. And so I already started empathizing. She said he wasn't receiving due process and wanted to know if Congressman Moran or somebody would be able to help her son out or look into his case and see if he could get some help. And not only did he not empathize with that mother at all, he just basically shrugged his shoulders and said that that wasn't up to him and it was something that the courts would have to look into.
But it is something that Congress looks into. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Louis Gohmert came and visited both me and Ryan in the D.C. Gulag. They sat down with us. They shook our hands. They listened to our concerns. They were very involved. This is absolutely something within the purview of Congress, judicial oversight, to look into these conditions in these jails and these prisons. And this congressman didn't want to hear it.
And he kept it moving, and the audience was mad, understandably so. And so a follow-up question came about that, and still he shrugged his shoulders, which is the video you saw yesterday, and he kept it moving. Me, as a pardoned January 6th defendant, somebody that had his due process trampled on over and over.
Which we did, and we had our due process completely violated. They seized our attorney-client privilege materials. They monitored our jail calls. They denied access by our attorneys to visit their clients, the defendants, while incarcerated. And so I completely empathize with this. So again, what Ryan is talking about here is prison reform, which is a big issue. I think it matters to all Americans because of January 6th, which this is the time to bring up January 6th. Who cares about the riot? That's half a decade ago. But prison reform is important today. It's important to Democrats as much as it is to Republicans. I am very, very passionate about prison reform. And I think what Ryan is discussing here is that this congressman, Moreno, could give two shits about prison reform. But I think Democrat and Republican alike, the way that January 6th defendants were treated and the way that people have been dealt with in the past has been completely wrong. We all saw it in prison. And I wish somebody would take a closer look in that. I think Ryan would do that.
Over and over, somebody who now has an autoimmune disorder.
Look at his hands. When he says he has an autoimmune disorder, look at his fingers. If you can see here, they're discolored. There's patches of skin. He wasn't like that when I knew him in the DC jail. That is all new to me. And it's really kind of astonishing to me. It wasn't like that. This is acute. This is something that's rapid onset. This is new that happened. Now, the last time I saw Ryan was in 2022 or 2022, I think. And his hands did not look like that. So this is something that evolved while he was in jail. And he was probably neglected on that because we all were.
Okay, it's called vitiligo or something like that. It has been caused straight from this process. I can prove it with paperwork. When somebody like Congressman Moran won't listen to the people that are there, there's a problem. There's an issue. Congressman Moran doesn't deserve that seat. He doesn't deserve to run for Congress and be inside of Congress. He doesn't deserve to represent the people of East Texas. And so
I agree. When your congressman no longer listens to you, it's time to get him the frig out of there. These people are not our leaders. We are their leaders. They are there to represent us. The will of the people is enacted by those we send to Congress. Do you want to send somebody to Congress who won't even listen to his constituents, just blows them off? Let's continue.
So yes, no matter what, I am going to step up and I am going to run here in East Texas for.
So what is astonishing about this is that he stepped down and said, you know what, no, I'm not going to run against this guy. But then he saw him firsthand and said, you know what, no, this guy's got to go. I'm grateful that Ryan is willing to do that.
For the people of East Texas to be the voice of Texas District 01. And look, under no circumstances am I dropping out. Under no circumstances will I not run. I will be on the March 3rd primary. I will be on the ballot. Now, if you as East Texas don't want me to go to the election in November and then go to Washington, D.C. to represent you, then I will let you decide that.
I think Ryan would be an excellent candidate for Congress. I think he would get a lot done. This man is a small business owner and done very well. That's his home in the background. He worked his ass off to get that. This wasn't some give, send, go money. This wasn't embezzlement. This wasn't any kind of payout. He busted his ass to get that place. With his hard work and his dedication, he created jobs and all sorts of things. Ryan would do excellent in Texas.
I'm going to let the voters decide. But last night what I saw was not a representation of the voters. It was a representation of a rhino, Congressman Moran, and that's exactly what he is, an establishment rhino who does not support President Trump.
Which is what we need. We need people who are going to support the president. I want you to remember this, America. This primary is going to represent the last 2 years of President Trump's term. I don't support a term 3 presidency for President Trump. I don't. I really, really hope that was just a joke or whatever. I don't support that. But this is going to be Trump's last hurrah. Those 2 years, what would that be? The 120th Congress, I believe. We need people who are going to get things done for President Trump so he can enact his agenda and get his reforms and his legislation pushed through. Let's continue.
Is not America first, and he showed that with all of his actions last night. I'm coming to represent Donald Trump. I'm coming to represent America first. I'm coming to represent East Texas first. Texas 01, I'm coming. And I plan on representing you. We're all going to Washington, D.C. Not just a congressman. I'm not just going to Washington, D.C. You are coming with me, and we're all going to Washington, D.C. So let's go.
All right. So those are the 3 candidates. You've got Jacob Lang. You've got John Sullivan. And you've got Ryan Nichols. All of them are running on January 6th as their background, right? Jake Lang's entire shtick is revolution. We need a revolution. I don't think he's going to do anything crazy, but that's not going to do anything for America. Sullivan is running on I'm relatable, January 6th. I'm funny, I'm gay, I'm a transsexual, so like that doesn't bother me. But he's checking boxes, right? So he's trying to push his own platform based on January 6th, and it really had no substance to it either, other than like I'm relatable. Ryan Nichols is a guy who's going to get it done. I've known Ryan for years and years, and I'm telling you, if you want anybody to run for Congress based on January 6th, whether it's Harry Dunn, Jake Lang, or Sullivan, Ryan Nichols is going to get it done. If any of you are out of Texas, please vote for Ryan Nichols. I promise you, you will not regret it. All right, everybody, that's really all I got for you tonight. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow.